This is the biggest, bossiest, most epic list of tips for Elden Ring you will ever need. We're going to go through all of it, so sit back and relax, you Maidenless Tarnished. It's time for 50 tips for Elden Ring. I'm going to call this section Exploration and NPCs. Firstly, we'll talk about the lady at the Round Table Hole. There's a beautiful lady there that will ask to hold you. Now, we all like to be held, but if she does hold you, she will give you a debuff to your total health. In order to remove this debuff, you do need to consume the item that she gives you and then wait a couple of minutes and the debuff will go away. You do need to get held from her a couple of times to progress her story, so make sure you let her hold you and progress her story. Next, if you go to the Third Church of Marika in the East Limgrave area, you can get the Flask of Wondrous Physique. This can be mixed to do different effects. There are different tiers that you can get from the Erd trees that you find throughout the world and other locations that will change the effects that you can put on this flask. Once you've picked up this flask, you'll have an extra option when you're resting at a site of grace and you can change the effects that you can put on them. I really like the damage negation effect so that you can prevent some damage coming from you. Basically just makes you invincible from one specific attack, so you can use this sometimes. The gold path on the map will always lead you towards the main story objectives, so make sure you're following that. But other than those objectives, NPCs have objectives for you as well, but they aren't tracked, so make sure you write them down, Google it, find all that information and mark where NPCs are on the map. When you're looking at the map and areas that you haven't discovered yet, if you find a location that has a pillar on the map, if you go there, that will be where the map fragment is, so make sure you go there to unlock all of the map. Mark sending gates and bosses that you've skipped on the map as well, so you can always return to them later, especially sending gates. They're like located everywhere and it's important to mark them if you're looking for quick ways to travel around. The time of day is not only used to take cool screenshots, but it also affects the stealth effectiveness of you at night. You have more stealth effectiveness, and there are night cavalry bosses that only spawn at night throughout the world, so make sure you are checking in locations around night, especially where there are mounted knights. If you change the time to night, chances are there is going to be a night cavalry boss that'll spawn there. Locations on the map like tunnels or ruins or anything that looks interesting is probably going to be something interesting, so go and travel there and see if it is actually something. You can buy a lantern so you don't have to equip a torch in your offhand when you are in those darker areas in the tunnels. You can buy a lantern at a few of the vendors in the game, but once you go there, buy the lantern, put it in your pouch, and then you can just equip this and it'll just be on your hip so you can still have your shield or whatever is in your offhand. By holding Y or triangle, you can access your pouch, and this is a great way to hold items like the lantern or your horse that you're going to be regularly using, but you don't want to have to flick through the item slots. It's a great way to just stop you having to mash that down button on the D-pad. If you hold that D button on the D-pad, by the way, you will snap to the first item on that list, which is usually going to be your heal. If you find Stormveil Castle, Margit, or Godric too hard to kill, you can actually skip Stormveil Castle entirely via a secret path on the east side of the castle. So if you want to skip that area and go and explore the Liurnia of the Lakes, you can do that. Those flame-spewing towers in the catacomb areas can be knocked down by attacking them. You can actually do this from range with a bow, so you don't have to go all the way up there and actually hit them. Make sure you do it from range to save yourself the trouble. Combat tips. Every weapon has a light attack and a heavy attack combo. If you dual wield two of the same weapon, your block or L1 will always perform a unique combo attack for both of those weapons when dual wielded. A key mechanic in Elden Ring is guard countering. When blocking an attack with a shield, if you immediately follow up with a heavy attack, you will perform a guard counter, which will do a large amount of damage to the target's stance. Jumping and then light or heavy attacking is a great way to close the distance as well as do damage to the target's stance. Most weapons also have a unique attack animation after a dodge. If you don't want to dodge to trigger this attack animation, but you do like the animation, you can actually crouch and then attack and it will perform the same action. Some weapons will do more damage or have different attack combos when you two-hand the weapon. You can two-hand weapons by pressing Y or triangle and then the LB or the RB button for the left hand or the right hand respectively. Two-handing weapons will also reduce the strength requirement to wield that weapon, so if you don't meet the stat requirements, you can do this to wield some of the heavier weapons in the early stages of the game. While wielding a piercing weapon, you can block with a shield and attack at the same time without dropping the shield. You can keep that shield up and just poke away at the enemy. Poise is your ability to resist interruption from enemies. When they hit you, you have a less chance of being interrupted from the action that you are performing. Your poise is diminished as you take damage, and at a certain point your character will become stunned. You can check what your actual poise value is in the status menu and see how high this is. Obviously higher the better. Stances, or super armor, which is sometimes referred to as, is similar to poise for one specific part of combat in Elden Ring, and that is for critical hits. When you initiate a stance break or break a super armor, you will hear a loud bang, and this is what's actually known as stance breaking. The enemy will then slump down with a glowing area that you can follow up with a critical hit, but be mindful they can also do this to you. Charge attacks and jump attacks are basically the best way to break an enemy's stance. Certain Ashes of War have a very high chance to break that stance as well. At the War Master Shack in Limgrave, you can buy Ashes of War, as well as the no skill Ash of War, which you can put on a shield so that your main weapon's Ash of War can still be used while holding a shield. If you have no Ash of War equipped at all, say you're holding a shield with no skill and you switch your primary weapon to just being nothing in your right hand, this will change your active Ash of War to kick, which you can use to stance break enemies that are blocking at you. Typically, the heavier the weapon, the more stagger it will do or damage to stances. In order to cast incantations, you need a Sacred Steel, and for spells, you need a staff. There are numerous amounts of armor found throughout Elden Ring. You can wear whatever has the best resistances for your current situation. If you're fighting a boss, for example, that does fire damage, you want to wear the one that has the highest fire resistance. If they're doing physical damage, the one that has the highest physical resistance. You should always be chopping and changing your armor based on the situation that you're in. The only thing to be mindful of is to avoid a heavy load, which will initiate fat rolling. What this means is that when you initiate a dodge, you will do a slower roll animation. You want to keep your equip load in the medium section, which is 70% of your total equip load. If you do want to go into the fat rolling section and you do want to fat roll everywhere, you can do that, but you should be jumping rather than rolling, because you can jump backwards away from the enemy and your jump isn't actually affected by your equip load. You can increase your equip load by increasing your points into endurance, and will increase this as well as your stamina. Spirit summons are highly effective, especially in boss fights, to take the aggro off you, so you should be using this. You can also upgrade these at the round table hold, so you should be doing this as much as possible. Horse combat, I guess we'll call this horse combat, or just like horse stuff, things on the horse torrent stuff, we'll call it torrent stuff. While riding your horse, you can attack on either the left or the right hand side. By pressing LB or RB, you will switch between the sides. You can also change to your off-handed weapon by holding Y and pressing LB, so you can equip that weapon in your main hand. Holding a shield while you are mounted and heavy attacking will allow you to block while on horseback. When you're in swamps, you can mount your horse to avoid taking damage from just walking through the swamp and increasing your poison damage. Wear the heaviest armor possible when you are mounted on a horse, because it doesn't affect the mount speed. You'll still be able to move at the same amount of speed even if you are well above your equip load. The spirit jumps that you find throughout the world are a great way to get height and get up into areas, but they also negate fall damage, so you can safely fall into these from great heights if you're trying to access the area down below. Upgrade tips. Enemies that have golden eyes will drop 3 times the amount of normal runes. The golden runes that you find can be consumed to give you runes, and these can be found all over the world, but the glowing skulls can be destroyed to always get a golden rune from them. The total amount of spells or incantations a vendor can sell you can be expanded by giving them a prayer book for incantations or a sorcery scroll for spells. The main incantation vendors are Brother Cohen at the Round Table Hold or Muriel at the Church of Vows, and spells are primarily sold by Sorceress Celine at Waypoint Ruins, though there are some others later in the game. Smithing stones and somber smithing stones are used to upgrade your weapons. Somber smithing stones are used for unique weapons. Smithing stones are found all throughout the world, but typically in mines. You can also find bell bearings to give to the Twin Maiden husks at the Round Table Hold, and they will sell you an unlimited amount of that specific smithing stone or somber smithing stones. Somber smithing stones are used to upgrade those unique weapons, and you can initially get an unlimited amount of the first couple of smithing stones from Blacksmith Iggy at the Road of Manor Side of Grace in the Lernia of the Lakes area. The major bosses of the game will drop what's called Great Runes. Now, these will need to be restored at their respective divine towers. Once you have restored them, you can equip them at a Side of Grace, but you're still not actually using that effect. In order to use that effect, you'll need to consume a rune arc, which is found throughout the world. Once you have consumed that, you will have whatever that effect is until your next death. These are perfect for boss fights. Initiate this before you go into the arena and get the effect, like increasing your total attributes. Crafting is a very valuable thing in this game, and it is ignored too much. You can craft all sorts of great things, especially for archers. There are plenty of different arrow types you can craft, as well as different effects you can put on your weapon, like fire or lightning or magic damage. You can also craft pots that you can throw at enemies to deal damage. You can craft items to give to your horse to make them happy as well as healthy. There are plenty of different things that you can craft which are highly valuable to give you an edge in a lot of encounters, and there are too many people out there that are just picking up all of the cool stuff in the world and not actually using the crafting. I myself do that a bit, so I am part of the problem here, but you should be using the crafting system as much as possible and make sure that you are using it effectively. Let me know in the comments below any tips that I have missed, anything else that you want to call out. Do put that in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.